the Governor, the Honorable Speaker of the Assembly, all distinguished guests and dear friends here. Mwamu Katia. You know, I deeply believe, personally, in the county government system of Kenya. It's a beacon of hope for Africa and a beacon of hope for the world. So I'm particularly delighted and honored to be invited to be here today. Now I was asked to speak for 20 minutes. I could only think of 10 minutes to say, but I do want to start with the governor's challenge. Why? Why? And then you listed a number of whys. So I hope to spend a few moments today going through a bit of historic perspective. Why are we in this situation? The challenges that you've spoken to community-led development are real. How did we get here, and what can we do to not dig a new hole to fill that hole? So this month, March, nations such as yours and mine are participating in the Summit for Democracy. We believe that democracy at the community level, subward, subcluster, at the community level is vitally important. The counties of Kenya show that a diverse country, and Kenya is a very diverse country, can govern itself in ways that gives every community the opportunity to achieve its own aspirations. The movement for community-led development was launched globally at the UN Sustainable Development Summit in 2015 under the auspices of the government of the Philippines. The Philippines, Indonesia, Brazil have all benefited greatly by establishing national programs for community-led development. In the 1970s, South Korea, at that time, was much lower in income than Kenya. It was on the list of the least developed countries, and it credits its community-led development program in moving it from the LDC list to being an OECD major donor country. In fact, during that period, it increased the incomes of rural people to exceed that of urban people. That's just unheard of. What was their secret? We'll study some of those secrets in the School for Community-Led Development. One of them is putting women in charge. Yeah. So at the opening of the SCG Summit, Pope Francis made a statement that warmed the hearts of us, all of us who champion putting people first in development. He said, above and beyond our plans and programs, we are dealing with real men and women who live, struggle, and suffer, and are often forced to live in great poverty, deprived of all rights. To enable these real men and women to escape from extreme poverty, we must allow them to be the dignified agents of their own destiny and integral human development. And the full exercise of human dignity cannot be imposed. They must be built up and allowed to unfold. With its 2010 Constitution, Kenya has put itself on the road to join this group of success stories. Since the launch of MCLD Kenya in 2019, Makueni County and the Movement for Community-Led Development have remained great development partners in asking and finding ways to address the challenges that the governor has mentioned. And I'm thrilled personally to be back in Kenya after 4 years, COVID permitting, to join you in inaugurating the School for CLD, which is historic for Kenya, as the governor mentioned, and for Africa. I'm also delighted today that we signed this updated MOU with the county. Long ago, for thousands of years, community-led development was the only form of governance on earth. People lived and worked within the distance they could walk. Then people invented the wheel and metal weapons and war. And they started building nations and empires and colonies. leaders far away stripped people of their power, their resources, their cultural traditions, and their religions. People everywhere resist domination. Anti-colonialism began the same day as colonialism in the 15th century. Colonialism was not just a military struggle, it was an ideology that infected the minds of both the colonizers and many of the colonized. And it persists to this day. It can only be defeated by an ideology based on deeper and truer principles. That ideology is the concept of human dignity. It was powerfully articulated 100 years ago by the founders of modern liberation movements, Mahatma Gandhi, Marcus Garvey, the father of Pan-Africanism, Y.C. Yen of China, and others. As Mahatma Gandhi said, we must think of the face of the poorest person we've ever seen and ask ourselves whether the action that we contemplate will restore her to control over her own life and destiny. That concept of human dignity became the first principle of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that every human person is born equal and has equal rights. Article 21 states that every person has the right to participate in governance and to have equal access to public services. The struggle continues to make this a reality. In my country's most recent election, Senator Warnock, the pastor at the same church once served by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in his victory address stated, "I believe that democracy is the political enactment of a spiritual idea. The notion that each of us has within us a spark of the divine. We all have value. And if we have value, we ought to have voice." The roadmap to realizing this right is the principle, as mentioned by the governor, of subsidiarity. It states that the only way to structure society consistent with human dignity is to move decision-making as close to the people as is practicable. When a decision is specific to a vision, like the placement of a preschool or a clinic, the village should make that decision. If it's a service road or a high school, the ward should decide. Colleges and hospitals, the county. Foreign policy, the issues go up to Parliament or even COMESA or the AU. Then, in each of these levels, how do we ensure that the human rights of women, youth, disabled people, and other marginalized groups are defended? This requires collective action by those groups themselves. You know, I have a poster on my wall, dining room wall that says, "The only safe community is an organized community." And that applies to each of these communities that are at risk of not being heard and not making their contribution. These groups, particularly the groups defending the rights of the disabled, have introduced a statement, "Nothing for us without us." These groups can succeed when you combine their own wisdom and strength with the wisdom of government systems that respects them. Another key principle is synergy. The fact that the complex challenges communities face in terms of incomes, food, health, clean water, and the natural environment are interlinked and can only be solved in integrated solutions. And the only people who can decide on that, you know, is this a priority now, are the people in that community. You cannot have health without clean water. You cannot educate children if they're hungry. You cannot have well-nourished children if their mothers are forced into child marriage. Communities have set their own priorities as to how to build up these systems in ways that work best for them. Finally, and the most courageous step that Kenya has taken is fiscal devolution, ensuring a fair share of public budget to every county, ward, and town. You cannot really shift the power unless you shift the money. And I've heard that there's some problems with disbursements. We should work on that. The result of devolution in Kenya, as in other countries has been rapid, broad-based economic and social progress. When every community prospers, the whole nation prospers. If all of this sounds familiar, it's because you're blessed to live in Makueni County or in any county that has worked hard to implement the mandates for citizen engagement in the 2010 Constitution. The shift from traditional top-down approaches to community-led development is not only a philosophy, it is a science. It is a set of skills of what's called transformative leadership. Leadership with, not leadership over. Learning how to facilitate groups in discovering their own strengths, their own vision, and to how to organize themselves for effective, self-reliant action. Learning how to apply those skills to achieve sustainable progress in health, nutrition, family incomes, public safety, and sustainable natural resource management is the role of the School for Community-Led Development. The science of community-led development requires a space, a school. I wish there was a better word than school. We're not going to school anybody. A space where people work together to broaden their knowledge, sharpen their skills, and make connections with the many resources available in Kenya. That's why we're here today and why my colleagues from around the world are turning their eyes to Makueni County and to the launch of its school for CLD. I congratulate all the people in Makueni for playing a key role in the quest for greater human dignity, and to the right of every person to take charge of their own development. This is a wonderful moment, and I'm so pleased I had the opportunity to be part of it with you. Asante sana.
Thank you very much.